Welcome back to Global War 1939. Moving on to round five, where things have definitely escalated on the world stage. So, for the Germans, they have advanced further into the Soviet Union, taking off a couple more territories in the center and advancing one step closer to Moscow in Olar Kursk. Very small, light battle. The huge stack of German material versus two Russian infantry, and the Germans lost one infantry in that battle. So, just a recap of what the Germans actually do have. We have 14 medium tanks, 4 Mark IVs, 3 heavy artillery, right now 6 SS mechs, 2 regular mechs, 4 or 5 artillery pieces, a healthy stack of infantry, 2 SS infantry, and cavalry. So that is on its way to Moscow. For the rest of the German turn, again, just accumulating more material in France, awaiting out the British and the Americans for the invasion, setting up defensive infantry with their forts on the coastline of France. They also spent a little bit of money into their navy, acquiring 3 new subs. They moved the bulk or the rest of their fleet. Last turn, it was down here in 28, and it's moved up to Sea Zone 16, more into their area of the ocean. As they seen the British amassing a pretty sizable fleet, and they definitely need reinforcements. So, hence the 3 brand new subs to go against the Americans and really, and the British to really challenge them. They'll probably have to start investing a little bit more of their income into their navy. But right now, they are certainly engaged heavily with their army units. So they'll probably start that transition maybe within the next 2 turns. Certainly not until Moscow is captured, or if it does, and the rest of the Soviet Union will follow. Once that happens, making that leap over to the Navy away from the Army would probably make more sense at that time. For the Germans, economic, right now they're up to $80. That's, of course, after bonuses. So we can see as the game progresses, their income will steadily increase, especially once they start taking out all this Soviet territory. And don't forget, there's bonuses for each of these cities. So they get a $3 increase for each city that they take. There is a bonus for having an infantry in Cairo, if or when that happens. That's certainly down the road. Right now, their main objective is to take out the Soviets. For the Japanese, now this was a monster turn for Japan. They certainly conquered a lot of brand new territory, reacquiring territory that they already had from a previous turn, and their navy really flexing their strengths. So, like, just to give you an understanding of how well they did on their turn, this is the losses on the Japanese turn. So all in all, combined, the Japanese lost 7 infantry, 1 destroyer, and 5 submarines for a total of $62. This is the entirety of the Allied nations' losses, equating about $236. The Allies certainly cannot afford losses of this exchange. Basically, Japan can replace the entirety of all their losses in one turn, where the Allies have to do multiple turns just to get the equipment that they already had. So this was certainly a big deal for the Japanese, and possibly a big turning point for them. And for the territorial gains, the one step closer to Calcutta, so they're right on the doorsteps. The FEC intelligence or government is kind of losing their minds, refortifying this as much as they can. Territories that the Japanese went on a big strike against the Chinese, acquiring 1, 2, 3, 4 territories right on the border. So it was a big big wall of Japanese moving forward, attacking all 4 territories, advancing their borders. And I would suspect on the follow-up turn, it'll be another huge advancement coming up. So I would suspect half of China of what they currently have will probably be under Japanese control. They also turned around and fought a few Russian fighters here. That force was this force here went into communist China, and the force that was in this production facility just moved north. So they got 2 more pockets of Russian resistance there that they need to take care of, which they certainly can and they will. And then Japan will have most of all of its original borders back again, minus a couple islands that the Japanese and the Anzacs took. For the Navy, they engaged the combined FEC UK Navy in Sea Zone 69. As you can tell from what I just showed you, they won that battle quite heavily. The British lost 3 capital ships, 2 of which are battleships. And the only losses for the Japanese were essentially subs and a destroyer. So definitely they did very well. Now, and they also amassed their secondary navy that was kind of spread out in the previous turn. They just brought it back to 124, getting it all together, regrouping. They did purchase another Amato battleship and a few other smaller vessels to kind of act as shields. Also, the rest of their production facilities was just infantry was placed just to max out those facilities. So certainly, Japan is pretty geared up. They're pretty strong. This fleet down here is now, because this British fleet is now destroyed, this Japanese fleet is now kind of out of position. So they need to sail back up, be closer to the Philippine Islands, maybe amalgamate with the secondary fleet, or keep them separated. But certainly their biggest target now will be the American fleet and the leftover of Australia. But they're right now, the British FEC fleet is completely destroyed. The only place on the planet that UK has any vessels in the water would be the Atlantic. They're completely cleared out of the Indian and Pacific Oceans, which is great news for the Japanese. And now they only got to contend with one nation as opposed to multiple. Yes, the FEC is still there, but threat-wise, they certainly don't pose as much compared to the Americans. The follow-up turns by the Allies, Japan did leave a couple places vulnerable. They did come down here with 2 transports, retaking this island for the Japanese, but leaving their transports kind of out in the open. FEC or Anzac definitely took advantage of that, sinking them. So they've lost a couple of transports. Right now they're down to 5. So they lost 2. They start the game with 6, so acquiring another one to get them back on par shouldn't be that difficult, especially with the income they have right now. They're currently sitting at 75. So a few more good turns, like they had the last one, gaining more territory. Right now they're eyeing probably another 6 new territories that they could potentially acquire, giving themselves another boost of income, pushing them past the 80 mark. So all good news all around for the Japanese. For China, not so much good news. Where the Japanese came in and took these 3 territories, the Chinese lost a lot of infantry. Lost about 6. The Communist China, they lost 6. Communist China doesn't right now has no standing army. They only have 1 territory. They do have $5 saved up, so the only thing they're going to be getting is 1 infantry. And I would suspect this turn here, the coming up turn, the Communist China will be completely eliminated from the game. I would be surprised if they were stuck around anything past that. To the point where they won't even get an opportunity to actually purchase a new unit. And I would highly suspect that these 4 Chinese territories will probably fall victim to the Japanese. Maybe even this one down here, only leaving them with one territory left. Yes, they seen an opportunity to punch a hole into the Japanese defenses. The Japanese did have 3 infantry here. They came down with their medium tank to try to take opportunities where they can, but those opportunities are few and far between. But take them when they can. These guys are kind of cut off now from the rest of their nation, but that's fine. They'll probably ignore these guys and let the follow-up group behind them take care of it. These guys, their main objective will be Calcutta. The only thing is, are we going to utilize the Navy to help them out with the Air Force bombardments and whatnot, or will they turn around, leaving only the Army and the Air Force to take care of Calcutta? We'll see. For the Australians down here, we kind of already went over it. They just attacked the 2 Japanese transports they had left there, and eliminating that, kind of making these guys now they're stuck on this island. So Japan will have to come down with a smaller force, a few destroyers, whatever, maybe a couple battleships and a couple transports to rescue these guys. But they are primed and ready for an attack here if that ever came down the road. We'll see. For the Anzac purchase, they got another cruiser and destroyer. So their entire navy is pretty decent for the Anzacs. They got right now 3 cruisers, 5 destroyers, 3 subs, and 2 transports. So that's not too bad for the Anzac. They still hold these 2 islands from the Japanese. So their income is pretty decent right now. They're sitting at $19. They're actually making more money per turn than FEC, as the Japanese have taken a lot of territory from them. They're also being convoyed in 2 different boxes. So that's another $2 that are now gone. So here and here, there are opportunities for the Japanese to take out a couple more convoy boxes, especially where the Indian Ocean is now firmly under the Japanese control. There's no Allied vessels anywhere, and you probably don't expect any more to be entering, as the Allied forces, their main theater now will be the Pacific. For the Americans, they brought their Navy. That was here that they took off the Japanese, this island. Took that infantry. There was a couple of infantry here in Marshall Island, and they came over to Sea Zone 107, offloading via transport. 3 more infantry. So Philippines, like, I can't stress that enough. Them starting the game in the setup with an army base, this is massive for the Americans. It certainly turns the Philippines into a battle that you don't even think about, that you just go in, minimal force. You go in with 3 infantry, artillery, and maybe a shore bombardment from a battleship. And this was almost guaranteed every game to go Japanese super quickly. But now with this army base, it certainly changes everything in the setup, and you can tell the amount of infantry and Marines and fighters, and they also have a fortification there. So this is the drawback from using your sneak attack on turn 1, because if you had saved it, yes, it would have made your turn 1 battles harder, especially in Singapore. But if you save it and use it on the Philippines, it might save you a big headache. So we'll see if we made the right call using the sneak attack on turn 1, or we have saved it, because certainly you need a big force to take this out, and it needs to be done. There is Victory City there, so it's not like it's just a $2 territory that you can ignore. Like, you need it to win the game. So we'll see how the Japanese respond to this. I believe the way they are handling it, and again, we'll see if it's a mistake or not. The Japanese will probably want to take out China and FEC before they fully commit to doing a total war with the Americans. So we will have to play it out. As of right now, Japan and America have not fought a battle in the ocean or um, by land. The Americans just took out 2 islands. Both were walk-ons. So we will see. But the American Navy is now here. It does have a decent little force. Capital ship wise, right now we got 2 carriers, 3 battleships. The Japanese overall have more capital ships. Right now they have 3 normal battleships, 2 Amatos, and 3 carriers. So aircraft carrier count, the Americans are tied, but I will give the advantage to the Japanese when it comes to battleships. Support vessels, as you can tell, they got 3 cruisers, a bunch of destroyers here, 1 sub, and 2 torpedo boat destroyers. On their purchase, however, they went ahead and got 7 more destroyers. They got another battleship and an aircraft carrier here off the coast of Hawaii with 3 transports and enough material to load all 3 transports to go island hopping if they're able to. But as of right now, if you could take all the Navy and put them in one big battle, I would still give the edge to the Japanese, but the Americans are quickly not far behind, so we will see. In the Atlantic, the Americans have put more money into the Atlantic, right? Purchasing 5 more transports and 3 more destroyers. So right now they got 7 transports there. They got another 2 transports down in Sea Zone 34. One they got from Brazil, and the other they brought down themselves. Still a coastal battleship and a couple more smaller vessels. So the Americans don't have the firepower to go after the German Navy, but they certainly have an adequate number of transports to get material land-based units into France. So right now they're relying on the British Navy to be the punch to get through the Germans. The bulk of the British Navy is in Sea Zone 27. They did acquire 2 more cruisers and 2 more destroyers to go along with this. Also, another transport. And they still got 2 subs down here. So more likely they'll mass all this together. Getting another battleship, possibly 2 battleships, might be a good idea. And they still have the largest air force on the planet. So the German Navy definitely would probably more likely lose what they have right now. Getting a battleship or 2 would just guarantee the win for the UK. So there'll probably be a turn or 2 of cat and mouse between the 2 navies before the British and the Americans are fully able to commit 100% to transports and landing personnel to get into France. But right now, the German Navy, their main goal is not really to win the naval conflict in the Atlantic, is more likely going to be a distraction and for the Allies, and a way to slow down the Allies, buying time for the Germans to complete their goals that they need on land. So that's how that's playing out. The transports that they came from with Brazil, most games they'll take the assets that they gain from Brazil and bring them up to Africa and help out the British there. But this game, they're actually going to keep them behind because they see that the Germans are pretty close to reaching their objectives and possibly getting Spain to join on their side. Now, when Spain joins, there is a pretty big reaction to the Allies. Portugal joins automatically on the UK side, and then on the Axis side, Argentina joins. And they'll get their standing army. It's not very big, but if you remove the Brazilian army, then there's nothing stopping Argentina from capturing all of Brazil. So possibly leave them behind so they can defend off Argentina and collect those 3 territories, getting $3 extra away from the Axis into the Allied hands. So that's what their plan is to do with that. For Italy and UK and Africa, again, it's just more building up, getting prepped up for a big battle for Calcutta. As you can tell, the UK has a good, healthy number of infantry. They have more infantry than their fortification can actually support. So only 10 units will actually get the bonuses. The anything excess of that will just be their normal stats. But still, this is for if you're looking at this and they're on the defensive, this could be quite challenging to get past. The bulk of the Italian army is still in Alexandria, where they have heavy artillery, 2 artillery, an advanced infantry, and 6 normal. They did go ahead and purchase another advanced infantry, a normal one, and a paratrooper. They got another cruiser and a transport. So right now they're up to their 5 that they do want. And they brought all their transports back to their home sea zone. So now at this point, they need to gather equipment or material to load onto the transports to help out with the assault on Cairo when or if that does happen. For Gibraltar, they went ahead and made their own counterattack to the UK's counterattack, but they could only get in 2 infantry from this territory here. But they had their air force to help and assist. The UK had 1 artillery and light tank, and they both rolled a 2, so the Italians had to take 2 hits. But if they wanted this territory, then they had to lose a fighter, unfortunately. So it's going to be it's not really too devastating, but the Italians, the Air Force that they start with is typically the Air Force that they continue playing the rest of the game with. I wouldn't suggest putting a lot of money into their Air Force, where the bulk of your money should go into not lower grade units, but cheaper units, because their income is not as high as other nations. And their standing army to start the game is not the biggest either. So they definitely have a lot of work to get their military up to a standard comparable to the stronger nations. So you'll end up seeing a lot of times them purchasing a lot of infantry, a lot of artillery, the scattered armored division here and there. But still, losing a fighter for the Italians is a pretty big deal. That is a blow that they're going to have to address. And of course, another challenge for the Italians is their navy. The starting navy is pretty decent for their nation, but you certainly want to get a bigger navy up and running, especially if you're expected to help out the Germans in the Atlantic. So instead of they opted this turn to go with another cruiser, and probably go with another battleship on the next turn coming up. Maybe depends on what goes on this turn here. They may need to put more money into their army versus their navy. We will see. Economics for the Italians right now, they are at 39 again after bonuses, so that's pretty decent. Overall, the Allies still have the bigger chunk of the economic pool than the Axis, but things are starting to turn around, and so we'll see how everything plays out. Hopefully, the Allies have all the momentum is certainly on the Axis side, but we'll see how well they can do to turn that around and put the initiative back in their hands. But that will be it for this turn here. And again, thank you for watching and have yourself a great day.